Hello, everyone. Welcome. It is coming up on 2 o'clock on the west coast of the United States. It is Friday, August 22nd. Welcome to another YouTube Live. If you looked at the thumbnail, this is funny. And again, I always wonder anymore about, privacy. Amber's here, Joshua's here. Well, I I don't know. I typically am very well intentioned. And I thought, okay, what do I put as a thumbnail? I was going to put my grandkids that I was just with, for my birthday, and one of them's on my partner's lap. And I thought, well, I don't really have permission, and he's only 9, and maybe I shouldn't do that. So then I thought, well, I could just use the non-person one that's kind of the default sunset that was taken on the Freedom Tower, uh, last Christmas. But then I went going through my photos and I saw that photo of a beautiful golden retriever. And I'm not going to tell you the name of the golden retriever, but I think the golden retriever is a beautiful dog. And that photograph was taken when one of my clients uh, played one of my hypnosis recordings out loud for themselves and apparently the golden retriever. And the look on the golden retriever's face is after the hypnosis session. So apparently, not only did the client go down deep, but the golden retriever really enjoyed hypnosis and was very mellow and very chill. And so I thought I would share that as the pet hypnotherapy result. So today, I do want to keep it light. It's Friday. We've gotten through another week. It's so great. So great to see you. So great that you're all here. I want to talk today about this weird paradox that we have as humans. You know it, you live it. It's like, why, if we choose to incarnate, like we come here and it's a school and, we're on the other side and we choose our parents. You've heard me talk about the whole spiritual path. Why are there some people that seem to just have it so easy? They have money and they're wealthy and they're royalty or whatever it is. And other people just have to struggle, and I have a point of view, and this is all my points of view are based on just my life experience and just the research I've done and everything else. And so, you can take it or leave it, but I do have a point of view that I'm going to talk about today about basically why must we struggle? Why can't it be easy? One of my famous things, and Joshua knows this, and I'm going to use I'm going to use the F word because I can. And I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't. I understand that YouTube has rules about things because I watch YouTube. I love YouTube. I'm here on YouTube, and we're just past 100 followers, and I'm feeling so excited about that. So maybe I shouldn't use the F word out loud and just call it the F word, because I understand that things are monetized and not monetized. I don't really understand how it works, but I do as I watch. Many YouTube videos, I do notice that things are bleeped out and there are certain kinds of things that are not referred to. So maybe I won't say the word. I do have the class called STFU, and I always say, well, it means exactly what you think it does. And I did have somebody want to register for the class and ask me what is the acronym STFU stand for? And it was a person from a different culture in a different country. It was a person from Europe who maybe for whom English wasn't. And so my answer to most people, if you don't understand something or if I make a reference, so I'm getting learning. So hello, excited to catch my first time live party. Nice to see you. And then they can come back and block your video, but that's all I know. I have heard that. I have heard that if the content is inappropriate. Now, there is a thing just so you know, when I log in to this platform, it does ask if the video is made for children or if it's not made for children. And I always click it's not made for children because I'm talking about adult themes, not adult themes like profane themes, but I'm talking about mature things for adults. I'm not intending these videos to be for a child audience. Hence, I didn't put my 9-year-old grandson on the thumbnail. And I'm trying to be more mindful of that. I don't ever intend any ill will. I am intending to help the planet and help you all with this thing called struggle and daily life and mental health and behavioral health and spirituality. And that's my whole platform. And so I was going somewhere with that. I will not use the F word but Joshua, who I've known for many years, has heard me say, I get frustrated. Do you ever get up and it's just not going well? And I mean really silly things. You you take a tissue and you want to just put it in the trash can. And there seems to be a demonic force. Now, I am being only slightly sarcastic about the demonic force. You right over the trash can, you're right over the trash can, and somehow the Kleenex doesn't make it in the trash can, but somehow it ends up 3 feet away. Or you drop something. This is a product also of getting older, where I dropped some this morning. I am filling this thing up with ice, and I am taking it and I'm in the ice maker in the refrigerator, and I don't know how the ice became explosive and ended up on the floor. But all I'm doing is trying to put ice in this flask to put some juice or something in it to take here me. I'm here at the clinic to take with me to work, and ice just goes all over everywhere. And not only do the ice, because it doesn't just land by the flint. There's method of my madness here, people. So just hang on, because I know you've experienced this. I know I'm not crazy. Oh, I might be. And so, how does the ice end up 20 feet away? How does the Kleenex end up 3 feet from the thing? How is it that I am so clumsy at times that it defies the laws of physics? Where you're just all thumbs. You're just so clumsy. Now, other days you're like a ballerina. Things are seeming to work really well. And some days the nothing goes where it's supposed to go. I kicked my Dr. Scott show tea with a special crushed ice 1 minute before the line. Now I've also got feedback. I got feedback from a client yesterday. This is hilarious. I see clients. People sign up for sessions. I have a Calendly link, and this was a doctor that I work with from Canada, if you must know. And he said that there's a pattern that happens when he signs up for a session. And so he says that I'm preparing for the session, and my sessions can be intense. Sometimes they're psychic readings, sometimes it's psychotherapy, sometimes it's hypnosis, mental emotional release, it's huna, ho'oponopono, who knows what it is. And he said that there's a thing happening now where he'll decide that now I don't typically I see some clients every week, but not very many really. Typically I work with more higher functioning people, and they will purchase a package of sessions, and then they will decide when they want them. Some people I see every week, some people are monthly, some people I see occasionally. And he has done a lot of work with me already, and so we're in the place in our therapeutic relationship where it's periodically he some stuff comes up, and he's noticing that as soon as he hits book or send or whatever it is on booking the session, all of a sudden there's all this stuff that happens. Now, I joke, I think that's really cool. And he said it last night that he opened the session by saying, I had all this stuff I wanted to work on. And as soon as I hit send on booking the session, all of a sudden all the things magically worked out. Just magically worked out. I won't get into the details. And I'm joking, of course. I'm going, wow, I'm good. Before the session even happens, we've handled all the challenges that seem to have happened. And so I'm joking. We ended up working on other things, and he got a reading and all that sort of thing. And so Josh says that it is one of those days. And I think this does happen to everyone. I think it happens to rich people. I think it happens to pretty people. I think it happens to everyone. I think that one of the beautiful equalizers of the human condition is that we are all in this together. We all, and I really do. And we just had a great conversation about diversity and inclusion and ethnicity, and working with a young man who's an intern, what's he called, practicum student here, and he's African American, and we are working on his professional identity, and he has made such great progress in understanding what the role of a therapist is and how people may view him, and people, and here at Heads Up, we have a great diversity of ages and of genders and of ethnicities and all different kinds of therapists and students and interns and people that work here. And I think it's great because I think that, our patients come to us and they would like us to be diverse as well. And this idea that, so my thing is, does it have to be this effing hard? Now, I struggle with technology. Now, I think, and this is my own self-evaluation, that for a 65-year-old man, I'm pretty technically savvy. I mean, given my age, my generation, some of you don't know what it was like to not have the internet, to not have cell phones, to not have GPS, to not have satellites, to not have Google Maps. You actually had to have a paper map. And I'm not trying to age myself, but some of you out there I know are my age or older, and you remember what it was like to not have all this technology. Now, I don't get me wrong, I love this thing. My son and daughter-in-law daughter and son-in-law, sorry, asked me. They said, "Okay, you're observing the grandkids." We were together last weekend for my birthday, and my birthday is coming up August 31st, just so you know. And they said, and I'm not going to use their names. I want to respect privacy. Are the kids spoiled? I said, I don't think they're spoiled at all. He goes, they're spoiled rotten. They don't know what the real world is like. I said, well, I'm glad. I'm glad that a 7 and 9-year-old don't know what the real world is like. I don't think they should know at this point. And we're talking about, how they plan on, these kids going to work, and they live a very nice life, as they should, as a 7 and 9-year-old. And his concern was, God, they're just so addicted to this. Now, they don't have phones. I think I've mentioned this before. They don't have phones. They have iPads, and they have TVs, and they have computers and laptops, and they use daddy's laptop and all that kind of stuff. And I think they're doing great. And by example, at this party, I have a concern when children or young adults are not socialized, meaning they're disrespectful, they're isolated, they have no friends, they don't talk to anybody, that their entire world is online, maybe. And I think that there is a danger in that now. There is a situation in Japan that they've coined a term called hikikimori, and I'm not going to spell it for you. It's a word, it's a term. It starts with an H and has a lot of K's and vowels, and hikikimori. And it is a phenomenon that is happening in young adults where they just never launch. And I go to Japan, and I'm using this as an example because young adults are struggling right now for identity, for economics, and we can go down the gambit of the struggle of what it's like to be a teenager now, what it's like to be a young adult now. And all of us struggle. We all have a struggle. And I'm going to say this, and we're going to get to it, that it is endemic in the human condition: struggle, challenge, obstacle. You saw my mentor, and that was Daisaku Ikeda, that made if you looked at the title in the description, and let me touch on that. Years ago, I was a young man in a Buddhist organization, and I think I was in my 20s, and I was having an audience with the president of the SGI. His name was Daisaku Ikeda. He died a number of years ago. And one of the other young men in the meeting said, Sensei, why must we struggle? Why is it that the more I try, the harder it gets? Why is it the more I challenge, the harder it gets? Why does it seem like the more I apply all of my goal setting and all of my fervor and all of my enthusiasm, it seems like the obstacles just keep piling up? And he said something, and I'll pass. Some of you heard me tell this story, but it's worth me mentioning that there is this thing called the laws of thermodynamics. And actually called forth the law of inertia, which is also one of the Huna assumptions. It states that that which is at rest tends to stay at rest, and that which is moving tends to stay moving. And the law of inertia says that when you begin to move, you are going to, by the product of physics now, the laws of the universe, you are going to encounter obstacles. And of course, he said it, more eloquent than I, but his point is that when you start anything, when you are learning anything, you are going to encounter obstacles. You are going to encounter challenges. You are going to encounter, and there's so many examples of this in nature. You take, and I'm a nerd, and I watch lots of different things. I'm fascinated by car detailing, by taking an old car that's been in a garage for 50 years, and they take them out, and it's dirty and dusty, and they clean it up, and they get it running again. Well, that takes a lot of work. I'm fascinated by abandoned buildings and by abandoned houses where they go. And I'm using Japan as an example, but there's examples all over the world of this. Whenever you have started an exercise program, I have a young man who studies with me now. He's very fit, You might go, well, he's a model. I mean, actually, he's an actor model, and I'm not going to show you his picture, but I mean, he's ripped and he's very attractive, and he's got this amazing body. And he studies Huna with me, and some of you know him because I've used him as an example in class, where he's like, why can't I get this? Why is this so hard? Why is meditation so hard? Why is spirituality so hard? Why can't I, get it like that? And I said, well, okay, I'm starting an exercise program. Do I start training for the Boston Marathon by running a marathon? I would die. I wouldn't make it 26 miles. Do I start a weightlifting or bodybuilding program by deadlifting 600 pounds the first day? You don't. And any progress, I've used this as an example in a video a while ago where I work with Olympic athletes. I have worked with Olympic athletes, with professional athletes. Worked with one young lady who happened to be an Olympic gymnast years ago. And she talked about her trajectory from a child tumbler, learning tumbling, then getting to junior high and feeling like she forgot everything, and then being a junior high, not really gymnasts. I don't think they have gymnasts, but she was doing whatever that was in junior high. And then she got to high school and she was on the gymnastics team. And at every stage of her career, she felt like she knew nothing. And I hear this from people in all disciplines, where the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know. The more you excel, the more you realize you have to start over. The more you learn things, this cyclical nature of learning and development is that it's not a straight line. You feel like you're taking 3 or 4 steps forward and then 4 steps back, right? And then and it's like that, and it's really frustrating. And so what she said was, I found interesting, was when I got to college, and she went to a very prestigious college that has a and I'm not going to use the name. I'm starting to be kind of conscious that I don't want to make sure you might know who she is. And I don't have permission to share her name or her school, but she went to a very prestigious university, and ended up, as a freshman making the gymnastics team. And she said, I felt like a loser. I felt like, they looked at those upperclassmen, the juniors and seniors who had been on the team for a while, and I was just a complete loser, even though I was a star in high school. I won my state tournament. I won every tournament. And I get to college, and it's all new rules and all new things. And I don't feel like I know anything. Then she made the Olympic team, and she female gymnastics. And she said, and I thought I was done. I thought, how hard can this be? Well, it could be really hard. And so my point with all of this is that all of learning and all of our growth and development across the human lifespan involves constant learning. And that at every stage of your learning, wherever you are, in whatever you do, think about the last time you started a new job, even in your field. How did that feel the first few weeks? Oh, and Aurelia's here. And thank you, Aloha. You started a new job, even in your field, whether you're a doctor or a nurse or anything at all. First 2 weeks were exhausting. Had some interns come to me this week saying, I'm not busy enough. I want more clients. I'm like, no, you don't. You want to start with 2 a day for a while. Sorry, you'll trust me. Talk to me in 6 months. You're going to be overwhelmed and underloved and burned out and tired. And you're going to come to me and say, I need a vacation. And I have it's not wisdom. I'm not going to say this is wisdom. This is just experience. Trust me, when you're starting a new job as a therapist or a doctor or a clinician, you don't want a full schedule the first day. You want to get your bearings. You want to figure out how it is. So President Ikeda says, how you know you're moving forward is by virtue of the obstacles you face. That's actually evidence that you're making progress on your timeline, a progress in your life. And I thought that was really interesting, because my question on the days when I'm dropping ice and I'm, spilling, and I'm really great at spilling things, clumsy, spilling coffee, I'm wearing a Hawaiian shirt. This is an Aloha shirt of Sigzine. It's an older one now. I'll be donating it soon. My indication it's time to take clothes to the dry cleaners is by virtue of the stains of the lunch or the taco or the coffee. I have a beautiful blue, brand new actually, Sigzane. And I know you all know this one. You put the fresh, crisp shirt out of the dry cleaners. and I can't get through the day without spilling on that new shirt. I can't. Now, again, I'm not trying to play mind games with you. Don't say, well, that's a limiting decision. Don't NLP me. I'm just noticing these, and I have to laugh at myself. My indication it's time for clothes to go to the dry cleaners is I notice, oh, and I noticed on my powder blue, beautiful Sig Zane Aloha shirt that I have some, I'm on camera a lot, and I'm noticing this stain, you know. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm pretty tidy. I'm pretty hygienically good, but I don't wear a shirt once and then put it through the dry cleaners. I only wear it for a few hours a day and I'm not a big sweater. I'm not, I don't sweat a lot. And so this is probably more personal than you need to hear. But I do have some clothes that require dry cleaning. I do have some clothes that I do laundry just like everybody else is. And I do change my clothes every day. I'm not that kind of a person, but I just think it's funny that I'll be in session like I'm a doctor, right? I'm working in my clinic and I have these light khaki sort of colored, like almost, they're not white, but they're like a khaki light colored. First, they show everything, in the winter or in the rain or whatever, I'll notice that, I spilled something or there's a mud stain like getting out of the car or whatever. And my point to this is please understand that your enlightenment, your progress down the path, your purpose, your mission, whatever it is you're trying to do, requires constant learning and constant attention. Now, President Ikeda's statement about how you know you're progressing is by virtue of the obstacles you face. Now, I am not committed to lives of endless, painful austerity, frankly. I'm not. I'm, here I go. People find me to be a high achiever. I have fundamentally a lazy nature. I have, and I'm not trying to put myself down. I just know myself. I'm not how can I say this? You don't get to be 500 pounds as I was and not have a fundamentally lazy nature. Now, I'm not beating myself up. I'm just saying that I'm not that proactive necessarily. Like people say, I had an intern the other day or a resident or somebody say you should write a book. Yeah, I should put it on the list. Now, my business partner just wrote a book in her spare time. I don't know how she did it. It's a beautiful book. It's called When Mom's Calling, and I will talk more about it in a separate video. It's not published yet, but I just wrote the kind of a testimonial about the book. Beautiful book. I don't know when she did that. She's busier than I am. She runs this clinic. She's got 6 children, grandchildren, and all sorts of things. She managed to do it. I don't know what my excuse is. I'm going to the gym. I'm doing my best. I've lost weight. And you understand that there's never going to be enough time. There's never going to be enough motivation. There's never going to be, that kind of thing. And so I don't want you to get all hung up on perfection. And I don't want you to get all hung up on comparing yourself to somebody else. But understand that in those moments when you're feeling the most demoralized and frustrated, either by virtue of your lack of progress, your perceived lack of progress, understand that the struggle is real. It is. The struggle is real. I recall the struggles of my youth, and they're different. I'm at a different place, but the struggles are real. So let's talk about that. In Buddhism, we talk about conspicuous benefits and inconspicuous benefits. And this is, according to scripture and Buddhist sutras, that a conspicuous benefit would be, getting an iPhone 16 Max Pro or Pro Max. I never get the order of the way it is. Just like I never order the Starbucks thing in the right order, how you have to stay venti, iced coffee with no classic, with, and they will repeat it back to me in the right syntax. Well, I just like that. I never know. Is it Pro Max? Is it Max Pro? Is it iPhone? Is it Apple phone? Is it Apple Watch? Is it iWatch? I go crazy. But I love this thing, and it's a conspicuous benefit. My headphones, conspicuous benefit. A car is a conspicuous benefit. A relationship is a conspicuous benefit, meaning it's something tangible. Oftentimes, it's what we concern ourselves with in terms of our goal setting, or in Hawaiian, we would say our pule, our prayer, our determination. Now, those are nice things. Those are important things. Having a goal, achieving that goal, and working toward a goal, however circuitous the route, is a very important, wonderful thing. And to be able to get a degree or get a job or a career or a relationship or a child or a grandchild, whatever. Now, I don't consider my grandchildren to be conspicuous. I don't feel like I created them, but I did create the conditions for them to be hatched, and I'm very proud of them. Uh, and I look from afar. You know, I'm a pretty hands-off grandpa. These kids are very well supportive. I love other people's children. And I love my kids, and I love them over there. And love. I would secretly, I would like to be more involved. I don't know. That's another story. Now, conspicuous benefits are those things that we most think of when we think of goal setting. We think of Poulet. What I want to also give you a side view of are inconspicuous benefits. Now, inconspicuous benefits are those things, sorry, that aren't so obvious. So if you look at, and I'd like you now to begin to think as I'm talking about things that you've achieved that you're proud of, things that you've achieved that you worked your ass off, and I realize maybe I'm going to get criticized for saying work your ass off, but you've worked really hard. You have attained some measure of competency in your field. You've attained some measure of success, relationships, some finances. You've gotten a degree. You've gotten your doctorate. You have a beautiful child. You have a beautiful pet that you're proud of. You maintain a beautiful home. You've managed to circumnavigate life's challenges. I know some people here in the program, and what I mean by that is that they are sober from drugs or alcohol. It's a huge achievement. I've mentioned my brother, 50 years, that's 50 years of sobriety, very proud of that. He also has a doctorate, very proud of that, and so on. Those are really important things. What I want you to look at now, as you get something in your head that you're proud of, that you've accomplished, I want you to look at the karmic patterns that you have overcome, the things that we wouldn't see about your life condition, the things that we wouldn't know about how you're different now than you were some time ago. And I think that's really important. Now, those are inconspicuous benefits, and those are the only things that maybe you would know. My client last night, the doctor, about the he presses send, and all of a sudden all the problems go away. We talked about for that session, okay, how are you different? How did you handle this, whatever it was? So he's having an issue with an associate in his practice. He has a clinic. And I said, talk to me about how you handled this situation maybe differently. And I want to know from you how you have changed in terms of how you manage yourself, how you manage your negative emotions, how you have managed living congruently with your values, how you've navigated karmic patterns, things that you've inherited, navigating your family. How have you navigated going to a family gathering that maybe would have been thorny years ago? How have you managed crises? Something came up with my business partner yesterday. And what I noticed in the feedback that I gave to her last night, she called me in a bit of a panic. I said, I want to point out to you, you are handling this much differently than you would have 5 years ago. And I said, the stressor is real. The struggle is real. The thing that's happening is real. What I want to point out to you, I'm saying this kind of to you all, that you are handling things differently than you would have some time ago. That is an inconspicuous benefit. I have let go of my lifelong obsession about weight. I know I talk about it. I use it as an example, but I am not tracking. I have an analog watch. I am not tracking steps. I'm not tracking my weight. I'm not tracking my calories. I'm not tracking my macros or my protein grams. And I haven't been for several months. And lo and behold, I'm still alive. Now, if some of you know me well, know that weight and health and body stuff has been a lifelong pursuit. I'm not going to even say challenge. I was 500 pounds by the time I was 15. I was 150 pounds by the time I was 20. And as I've said to you before, my weight and my body size and shape has been an issue. In the last 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, I've lost 140 some pounds. And for the first time in my life, um, I am no longer obsessed. Now, the conspicuous benefit is that I'm wearing size 34 waisted pants today. You can't see them. I'm wearing them. That is the size that I was when I was modeling. Some of you know I was a high fashion model in Europe and all over the world. I was on the cover of magazines. I was quite a recognizable face. I've had people actually say I used to see your ads back in the day, back in the 80s, a few years ago. Now, that's a conspicuous benefit. I could put on a pair of pants that I couldn't wear, since I was 23 or 24, and I'm 65. So, and I'm not saying this to impress you. I'm using it as an example. The conspicuous benefit is that my body is smaller and that I'm fitting into clothes I haven't fit in. But the inconspicuous benefit is that my life condition has changed. My point of view around health and wellness has changed. I used to look at those people actually with kind of envy and nastiness about, must be nice to be so skinny, must be nice to not have to worry about food, must be nice to not have to, struggle the way I have struggled. Nobody has known the struggles I've had. So as I looked at my poulet, and I have a running poulet, which is prayer, it's just goals for the year, and I'm always looking, I'm always striving, always looking to be better today than yesterday. And the inconspicuous benefits are those benefits that you know yourself and nobody else needs to know. Nobody else, you don't need to shout it to the rooftops. They can see your progress, that you got the degree or the relationship with the grandchild or the child, but they don't know how your overall life condition. So I'm looking at the list of people here on the call today, and I would challenge you to just reflect on the inconspicuous benefits that you have produced and that you have created by virtue of the struggle. And I think you'll find those very rewarding. Now, stuff. Relly asked me, "Do you make a yearly poulet every year?" I have a running poulet every day. Now, every year I reset it. Usually has about. It used to have about 30 to 35 things on it. The current poulet, because I took off all the body stuff and all the weight stuff and all the health stuff and all the macro stuff and the grams of protein stuff and the calorie stuff and the working out stuff, it's about 16 items. And right now, they're focused on retirement. They're focused on career. They're focused on money and finances. We're focused on not even health and wellness anymore. And so this poulet is, for those of you that aren't lunatics, I was saying I love being challenged. Yeah, you love being challenged. And I love that too. And I do too. I think there's a difference between challenging yourself and beating yourself up, or, uh, for not. So that's what we're talking about today. The inconspicuous benefits are the changes to your life condition, the changes to your emotional stability, the changes to your karmic patterns. If you have something that you brought into this incarnation that doesn't make any sense based on your history, right? That's a karmic pattern. You continue to date the same person in different bodies, or you have like a relationship pattern or a money pattern, for example. And I'm looking at larger patterns. Like, as I look back at the course of my lifespan, I've made a lot of progress in a lot of areas. And then there are things that seem to cycle around money, around relationships, around jobs, around career. And you just look at it. You look at it passively and say, wow, I'm just noticing that I'm here again. I'm wrestling. A great example that I've used before: all humans have what I call core wounds. And I'm saying this pretty even handedly because I don't want any of you, to think, oh, that relationship pattern. Yeah, you date the same person in different bodies. I noticed that for myself too when I was about 35, 40 years old, that the bodies were different, the humans were different, but the pattern was the same. And that there was something in me karmically that would attract the same type of person. And I'm not going to go into the details of that, but you know your patterns. So you attract the bad boys, the bad girls, you attract the user takers, you attract the dysfunctional ones, and so that's a type of karmic pattern that tends to go in cycles. And you see it in your friends and relatives much easier than you see it in yourself, where you can see your best friend or your friend out there. Wow, they're dating a new person. Hmm, looks just like the old person. Acts just like the old person. And so those are what I'm talking about. And I'm trying to think. I was hitting on an example. Um, and I've lost it now. So I'm just going to keep going with these inconspicuous benefits. So if you look at a pattern in your life that continues to perpetuate, and you notice that you'd like to actually change it, it requires learning, because understand that we are not attracted to what's good for us next necessarily. We are attracted to what's familiar. And so um, so if we grew up in a household where our position was this, that, or the other, or we grew up in a household with addictions, or we grew up in a household with violence, or we grew up in a household with poverty, really, that we will. So this is a great example. People have patterns around money that have nothing to do with how much money they have, right? Um, and I grew up, and people don't realize this. They think that I'm, born with a silver spoon in my mouth, and that I was born very poor. My father had passed away, and I didn't know we were poor until I got to college. I asked myself recently, what if it worked out exactly like I wanted? What would I be doing? Who would I be? I noticed my brain started to relax and actually made things for myself. Yeah. The challenge and the struggle fuels our growth and development. So I grew up poor, and I didn't realize I was poor until I got to college. And I went to college on scholarship and financial aid and scholarship combination. And my roommate was a rich kid. And I'm slightly joking here, my roommate apparently was majoring in marijuana, because he smoked a lot of marijuana and he partied. And he was the rich kid. And so he would have kids. Now, I was in a dorm room with, the college dorm room with the two beds and the two dressers and the two desks, very small room. And every night, pretty much 5 nights a week, weeknights included, he would have a party in our room where he provided the drugs and alcohol. And I was a nerdy, really paralyzingly nerdy freshman music student with an 8 o'clock class across campus that it took me an hour walk to get to. Maybe it wasn't an hour, maybe it was 45 minutes in the winter, uphill, both ways, barefoot, you know the drill. And um, I was finding myself having to move over in my little twin bed because all of his friends wanted to sit on my bed and smoke weed and drink alcohol that he was providing. And I did that for a few weeks, and had to ask for another roommate because I wasn't getting any sleep. But he had a very fancy sports car. He was attractive. He was young. He had all the girls. He had all the money and all the drugs and all the alcohol. And he was majoring in partying. That was his major. Not really. He was going to school. He ended up flunking out of school, and I got a different roommate. Pardeep says, I was just saying to someone earlier today, money belief also reflect other areas of our lives. Yes, money is just something that we can connect with easier. Money is energy, and so you can look at whether you look at your relationships or you look at your relationship with money. Um, and I have some core beliefs around money. And here I go. I love money. I love nice things. I live very well. I eat, I do. I live very well. And I have no complaints about my salary or how much money I make or anything like that. And I noticed that I have, like somebody said, this is a great example because I'm getting, my partner's retiring in a year or so. I'm not going to retire. I'm going to continue because I do everything I want to do anyway. I love what I do, and I'll continue to do what I do. But somebody said, "Oh, you should take this bunch of money and put it into an account, an index fund. And if you have, let's say, you have uh, $1 million." And I'm just going to use big numbers because it's really fun to look at big numbers. Let's say you get $1 million and you put it into an index fund. You know what it was? One of my colleagues was talking about retirement, and that he's a number of years away from retirement. And he says, I only have $1 million in my retirement fund. I said, well, that sounds pretty good. Gosh, good for you. He goes, no. Do you know that $1 million in retirement only yields about $4,000 a month? in retirement. Now, these are big numbers, and I realize $4,000 a month is a lot more than many people make. So I'm not trying to. I'm trying to say that, and where I went with this. Well, okay, so let me get this straight. I'm going to have $1 million, and I'm going to put it in a bank or an investment account, and I'm only going to get $4,000 a month when I could buy $1 million worth of stuff. I think you know where I'm going with this. Saving, this is now listen to the core, not the core wounds, but the limiting beliefs. Well, saving is kind of boring, right? Investing is kind of boring. Who wants to do that, right? It's much more fun to buy stuff and to go places and to have all these experiences. And that's the pattern that I'm talking about, where we'll have a pattern around money. Now, I know people who are money being neutral. I know people who have, well, no, I'm thinking of a college friend of mine, got married just out of college, got a good job, worked at the same company for 35 years, met her husband there, had her kids, has retired now, is living a great life. And these are probably the millionaires next door, meaning you wouldn't know it. They live very simply, very humbly. They own their home free and clear, and they did everything right. And they are they more enlightened than you? Are they, and I've watched them have hip replacements and knee replacements and things like that. They're the same as you and I, they just made different choices. I myself could not have imagined working at the same company for 35 years. I had many careers, I had many different jobs, I was very restless. That doesn't make me less than, it doesn't make me any better than. We make different choices and we have different karmic patterns. I have a friend who got a divorce, and she was left penniless after the divorce, literally had to file bankruptcy after the divorce, and has so turned it around. And she saves like crazy. She lives very simply, and she has really changed her whole life condition. And she's much happier living very simply and not needing the fancy things and the fancy cars and the fancy things, and so on. I have a billionaire that I work with right now. And this billionaire, was coming to me saying, I'm bored. I don't know what to do with myself. And I said, well, what, if anything, is more important than money? And it's a male. And he looked at me and goes, nothing. And I said, really? He goes, nothing. Money is the most important thing. Okay, great. Then how about you do a charity, or how about you do something with the money? You have so much of it. And he worked through, but what I want to point out, Oprah Winfrey was interviewed a few years ago by a pretty famous interviewer, Matt Lauer, who's not on the air anymore. But beside the point, and his question was a good one. He goes, he said, are you, Oprah, aware of your money? And she goes, of course I'm aware of my money. He goes, well, do you know how much you're worth? She goes, of course I know how much I'm worth. And then he goes, really? She goes down to the penny. And then he said, and then I heard a rumor that in your company, you have to sign the checks over $250,000. And she said, yes, I do. And she was incredulous that he would think that was surprising, right? Well, isn't there a certain point where you just have money and you don't think about money anymore? She was like, no. The more money you have, the more responsibility you have, the more accountability you have, the more people can steal from you, the more challenges there are about having money. And she said, make no mistake. Yes, I sign all of the checks over $250,000 in my company, and there are a lot of them. And it takes a lot to run a business, and it takes a lot of accountability and a lot of tracking and a lot of people to make this happen. And make no mistake, I know where every penny is. I know where every penny goes. Don't think that because I have the numbers are bigger that I'm not paying attention. And I think that's really cool, right? And I know people who have very small, very not a lot of money, and they have a certain pattern around money. And I know people who have a lot of money and have the same pattern around money. Now, listen to my language. I am not making a value judgment on how you do your money, but you get to look at the relationship that you have with money. You get to look at the relationship you have with anything and anyone. The bottom line is that your patterns, trends, themes, your behaviors are yours. And the spirit of self-evaluation is not self-deprecation. If there's something about your life that you don't like, there's something about your patterns that you don't like. I remember this. Um, I have a relationship history just like everyone else, and I remember having a relationship pattern that was very dysfunctional. I attracted emotionally unavailable people. I attracted parasitic people, people that would take advantage, that would need money, that would, I attracted drug addicts. I had a pattern, let's just say. And I remember, and I'm, of a certain age, and I remember really just longing to have a normal relationship, not a glamorous relationship, not a hypersexual relationship, but a normal relationship. And I put it out there. I put it into the universe. Now, lo and behold, this person entered my life and I didn't recognize it. And this is what I would say to all of you. Um, the best relationships aren't necessarily the most dramatic or the most intense. The best relationships are the ones that you can tolerate, or that can last, that could withstand the test of time. And I'll give you a funny example. So I'm a therapist. I am a psychotherapist. People come to me to work through exactly these kinds of patterns. So, and I'm going to use a female as an example because this is a pattern that is strident. But I could be using a male. I could be using someone who's non-binary. But this example happens to be female. This was many years ago. Comes in and she says, I have a relationship pattern where I attract violent men. I have a pattern where I'm somehow excited by or challenged by these guys who are bad boys. And they become, and I have had now, I forget the number, but she'd had a number of long-term relationships, a couple of marriages that ended up with domestic violence, with restraining orders, with shelter stays. And she says, I can't seem to bust up this pattern. And so I'm coming to you. She was in her 40s. And this is funny, and I want you to laugh. I'm not laughing at domestic violence. It's not a funny thing, but I think it's so great when people overcome their karma. They overcome their challenges. So she comes in one day. We've been seeing each other for a while, and she says, "Oh, I met a guy." I said, "Great. Tell me about him." "Well, he's just so nice." "Great. Tell me about him." "Well, he makes a lot of money." "Great. Right, right." "Well, you know, he's just so nice, and he's handsome, and he's got a great job, and did I tell you he makes great money?" "Well, great. Isn't this great?" "Well," and I said, "I'm gonna stop you." I said, "You're bored." "Yeah, I'm kind of bored." And then I said, "Listen to me and look over here. Because he doesn't have a knife to your throat?" She went, "Oh, you're bored because this isn't the pattern. And you're attracted to the bad boys, and you're attracted to the adrenaline and to the all that stuff." She went, "Oh my God, you're right." So she said, "What do I do?" I said, how about you don't screw this one up? How about you hang in with this guy and give him a chance? I mean, she had just started dating this guy. So bored. He's got a good job. He doesn't need me for anything. He doesn't have a knife to my throat. He's not stealing from me. He's not drunk. He's not a drug dealer. He's not a DJ. He's not. And we just, this is in Las Vegas. She's just had this pattern of dealing, with dating all the bad boys and the drug dealers and the DJs and the scary guys and the bikers and the, leather daddies or, whatever it was. And we just had to laugh. And she just cracked up and went, "Oh my God, this is it right here. I don't see him because he's not the pattern. He's not my type. And my type, I have complained my entire life. The type that I'm attracted to, the bad boys and the scary guys and the guys that beat me up and the guys that do the drugs and the on and on and on. And because that's what's familiar to me, that's all I see. So this nice guy. Now, bear in mind, we had created a poulet or a prayer or a goal setting for her, or an avatar, if you will. Okay, I'm the therapist. Like, well, what kind of a guy do you want? So I was looking in the chart, The medical record went, "Well, wait a minute. You said you wanted somebody who was kind, and you wanted somebody who was stable, and you wanted somebody who didn't need you for anything, and you wanted somebody," and she had attracted the very thing that she had said she wanted, and she didn't see it because it wasn't the pattern. Now, they're married, they're living happily ever after, it's going great, but it took some learning. It took her and many of her friends to meet the guy and go, "Sweetheart, do not screw this up. This guy's a winner." It took a while. And so they courted formally for like 18 months before he asked for her hand in a very respectful thing, went to her father to ask for her hand in marriage, and they are living happily ever after. Now, I tell you the story because I would love, we got to go pretty soon. I would love for you as a result of this live to come and make some of those assessments. Like, where are those old patterns not serving you as exciting as they are? Because they are. They are exciting. It's exciting to, I don't know, spend money or, charge up credit cards or go gambling or, do drugs, or it's exciting to have a bad boy or bad girl or have some sexual fling or an affair or something that is exciting, but it may not be in your best interests. Now I'm talking to adults here, and evaluate, is that really what you want? You know, and you may find that now, and I'm going to say for myself, when my partner, who I've been with for 25 years, appeared, I didn't see it. Luckily, I had people in my life that said, "Wow, this guy's a keeper. Don't screw it up." And I had several best friends go, "Wow, you have really changed something here because this one is not like all the others." And so we're talking about relationships, but we can talk about money, we can talk about abundance, we can talk about your cyclical patterns from childhood, your karmic patterns that you've inherited, any of that stuff that you can look at and just notice the rhythm, notice the cycles, notice the rhythms, and you can change it. And if you want to, right? Um, I have a guy I talked with yesterday who has really turned it around. And he's changed careers, he has changed relationships, he has changed patterns, and he doesn't know how to act because it's all new. And the footholds that he had in a dysfunctional relationship or a dysfunctional career or a dysfunctional anything. And so it does require constant learning, but understand that you can't fail. There is no failure. There is no wasted effort. It was someone, no, it was that guy, the guy that's just changed relationships, changed careers, changed his life. He goes, "Well, gee, I've done all of this work. I've studied," he studied Huna. He's a Huna student. He goes, "I've studied Huna. I've studied, da, da, da. You'd think I would have gotten this by now." And I'll leave you with an example. Um, and some of you know the story. So I taught a class just pre-COVID at a multinational corporation. I do a lot of corporate training, corporate teaching, physician leadership kind of thing. I taught a class on diversity. And um, I always think it's funny that they hire the white guy to teach diversity, but I'm pretty diverse in my own way, but I'm a white man. And there were 25 people in the class. I got 24 stellar evaluations, and I got one not good evaluation. Now, you all know me and you know that I'm a perfectionist, a recovering perfectionist. I'm a high achiever. Of course, the one that I focused on was the one that was bad, that was negative, right? And that's the nature of the human condition. You've heard that statistic that for every positive message a child hears in school, they hear, or at home, they hear 12 negative messages. And for every positive message a child hears in school, this is current statistics, current data, they hear 18 negative messages. Now, a negative messages is characterized by a bad grade, or, Johnny, shut up, or Cindy, go to the principal's office, or take the cat out of the microwave, or stop strangling your sister, or any corrective action at all, our unconscious mind hears as a criticism, as a negative. And so for every attaboy, good job, good girl, wow, you're wonderful, you're amazing, humans of all types are going to hear and internalize more negativity about us. So I focus on this one negative thing. And when the company that I was working for, Cigna, actually, and Ecolab was the client, called me to talk about what did I do to so upset this one student. And the vice president of whoever it was just saying, Dr. Scott, you're not in trouble. You're not in trouble. We just don't know what you said because everybody else just loved the class. This is an executive in our company. And what, kind of what did you do to so piss him off, to so upset him? And we worked through it. And it's a long story. I'm not going to go into the details. My point is, if my core wound from childhood is I'm not enough, that's what I've identified. I've done a lot of work on it. However old I was, 60 years old at the time, my unconscious mind went right to, I've made a mistake. I've done something wrong. I'm in trouble. It was like I regressed to be 7 years old. Now understand, I've done a lot of work on myself. I know I'm enough. I've proven so many times. But what I'm saying to all of you, because what I get as a therapist and as a trainer, as a coach and a teacher is, when am I going to get over this? When am I going to be enough? When am I going to be done doing my human revolution? When am I going to finish and be over all of my patterns and all of my stuff? And I say, I don't know that we ever completely eradicate some of that old stuff. Now, that doesn't mean that we need to be hospitalized. It was interesting to me. Now, and I had the physiology. They called me up. They set an appointment. We want to talk about this recent class that you did. And immediately I went, well, they never do this. What's up? And they didn't share with me. I thought it was interesting because they never shared with me the evaluations, which they did. We got on the phone and it was the Cigna representative and the Ecolab representative, the person that hired me and the company that I was working through. Dr. Scott, you're not in trouble. We just want to find out, you're not in trouble. They must have said it 4 or 5 times. Well, what does my unconscious mind hear? Dr. Scott, you're in trouble. You're in trouble. You're in trouble. You're in trouble. And the physiology that my body lit up was that I was in trouble. And I regressed to be a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old or a 7-year-old. Now, I'm saying this to you is that I want you to have healthy expectations for yourself. I want you to have clearly, we all are on path and that there is no wasted effort. And please don't have an expectation that you should be completely over anything. We're all works in progress. There is no wasted effort. You are on purpose and on path. And with that, I got another thing at the top of the hour. So I'm going to go to do that. And I wish you the best. And we will see you next time. And we'll see you next week in another YouTube Live. Have a great day.